Meanwhile, Iran has reopened all of its mosques in the capital after about 2 months as it eases lockdown restrictions despite a rising number of coronavirus cases in the country. The decision to reopen the mosques was made in consultation with the Health Ministry and the director of the Islamic Development Organization. Officials closed down mosques and holy sites across the country in mid-March to curb the spread of the coronavirus that has infected over 110,000 people in the country so far. Iran plans to reopen schools next week. The country has already lifted a ban on intercity travel. Large shopping centers have also been allowed to resume activities. Meanwhile, a county in Khuzestan province is fast emerging as a COVID-19 hotspot in the country. Remember, Iran is hardest hit Middle Eastern nation by this pandemic. The country has reported nearly 7,000 coronavirus fatalities so far. However, the government has been accused of covering up the death toll. Joining us on this broadcast now is political analyst Syed Mustafa, and he's a political analyst, a university professor and editor-in-chief of Iran's Far News Agency. Now, Syed Mustafa, welcome to WION, and we'd like to know from you, why is Iran deciding to open all the mosques when the death toll in the country is mounting? It's the hardest hit nation in the Middle East. What's the reason behind it? Is there a control over the pandemic, or is there some pressure on the Iranian government?
Hello, and thanks for having me. Well, no. As a matter of fact, Iran could say that it has brought the outbreak under control, considering that at a time there was, the figures were rising very rapidly until 1 month ago or 5 weeks ago. The death toll was somewhere around 200, sometimes 190, something like that. But now the death toll is no more than 45, 43 each day, and it's declining. The numbers are going down. Half the country, more than half the country, has been declared as white or yellow regions, and there have been only a few regions that have been called the red hot spots, mostly in the southern parts of the country, which are warm, like the Persian Gulf countries. These were areas that were not suffering from the outbreak in the first stage of the disease when it appeared several months ago, when the rest of the country, Tehran, and also the northern parts of the country were in trouble and grappling with the rising numbers. But now it appears that they are the new centers, but the numbers are not as catastrophic as they were before. Well, there are reasons why Iran started reopening. First of all, it's not a reopening, full reopening. Schools have been allowed to start activity, but not classes. As a matter of fact, they will reopen for troubleshooting for students. So students come and go. They would not stay there for classes. The same will happen a week later after that for universities. When it comes to the mosques, well, the Iranians, despite all the sanctions and pressures on economy, when coronavirus appeared, the economies all throughout the world were hit badly. But because Iran's economy was already under pressure, people had learned, the government had learned how to cope with such crises. So people obeyed the government and cooperated, actually, not obeyed, but cooperated with the government pretty well. And the scenes that we witnessed in Germany, in Europe, in the United States, when people are taking out to the streets to shout for reopening, such scenes never happened in Iran. And it was the government that started this interaction, positive cooperation with the public. Right. And then it was the state's turn to reciprocate this cooperation of the population. The population is Muslim, and this unique opportunity in Ramadan appears just once a year. So there were strict protocols for people who intended to go to mosques last night and tomorrow night, just to stay there for 2 hours, to wear masks and gloves and, facial masks, and also to sit 2 meters away from each other. And, on similar occasions in previous years, people stayed in the mosque for all the night, 10 hours, 8 hours. But last night it was broadcast on TV channels live. It was no more than 2 hours. And in most areas, people respected the rule. So we could say that the government and the people have it under control. If there is no such cooperation between the state and the people, no matter which country we are talking about, then there will be very bad problems for that country.
Absolutely. It's great if Iran has got the disease finally under control. However, Iran is the second worst hit country in Asia, only after Turkey. There are more than 112,000 cases in Iran. The death toll is 6,700 and upwards. Now, some Western media outlets have suggested that Iran is downplaying the number of infections. Any word on that?
Well, let's remember that this disease has a proven pattern. The curves are showing now that after China, Iran was the epicenter. But a few weeks later, when the Iranian opposition media in the United States and London, as well as some English language opposition TVs against the Islamic Republic, they were mocking at Iran's health system, then suddenly they came to grapple with this epidemic, this pandemic, and then they tasted how it acts. It infects countries one after another. There was a time when Iran was the epicenter in West Asia, but 3-4 weeks, the epicenter moved to Europe, to Italy, Spain, England, where we saw much worse scenes. The numbers are 3-4 times than Iran. And then the epicenter moved to the United States. Now the curve is showing us that the same coronavirus outbreak curves show us that the disease is moving to Latin America, to Russia, to Africa, India, and the Persian Gulf Arab states. And, I believe all the world countries should cooperate with each other in order to learn from each other, because this disease, this coronavirus is novel, it's new, and man's science about, confronting and combating this virus is, very much restricted and limited. And the same way, and that's the reason why actually several European state leaders called Iranian president as well as health minister 2 months ago to understand how Iran could eventually, come along with this and curb the outbreak. The WHO has endorsed Iran's figures. Now, if you just compare them with what's happening in Italy, Spain, in England, and the United States and Brazil nowadays, you could see that Iran has been successful. And it's not just because of the state. It's also because of the people that cooperated with the government and because of the very complicated health system that WHO admired 3-4 months ago when they came in to Tehran to be the best in the Mediterranean region.
Right.
These are the two main reasons why Iran has contained the disease so far.
Syed Mustafa, thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast live from Tehran. And till the time the world has a vaccine, all the nations will continue to find the best ways possible to contain this pandemic.